pick a number. Any number. Between 1 and 100. Don't think about it. Just pick one. You have it? Good. Hold on to it. Now here's the thing. Somewhere between 30 and 40% of everyone who just did that picked the same number. Not a similar number. The same one. 37. If that's your number right now, I need you to understand something. You didn't pick it. It picked you. And if it wasn't 37, I'd like you to stay with me for a moment, because what just happened, whatever number you chose, is stranger than it looks. You were asked to be random, and you failed. Not because you were careless or predictable or unimaginative, but because randomness is something the human brain was never built to produce, not even close. The question isn't why you picked the wrong number. The question is, Janaway, why did you think you were free to pick any number at all? Here's what we think is happening when we pick a random number. We think we're reaching into some vast open space of possibility, all the numbers stretching out in every direction, and plucking one out at will. We think the choice is ours, that we are in this small moment genuinely free. Psychologists have been testing this for decades. Ask people to pick a number between 1 and 10, and they overwhelmingly choose 7. Ask them between 1 and 100, and they cluster around primes. 37, 17, 73. Numbers with texture. Numbers that feel, somehow, less tamed than the others. And that word, feel, is doing a lot of work here. Because what researchers kept finding across different countries, different languages, different cultures, is that the clusters were roughly the same everywhere. The bias wasn't personal. It was structural, baked into the operating system, not the individual user. A study from the University of Amsterdam found that when people are asked to generate a sequence of random digits, they consistently avoid repeating the same number consecutively, even though in true randomness, repetition is not only allowed, it's statistically inevitable. We find repetition suspicious. We find patterns offensive, so we avoid them. And in doing so, we create a pattern, the deepest kind of irony. Our attempt to be random is itself the most predictable thing about us. A computer generating random numbers doesn't think, doesn't prefer, doesn't get bored of picking the same digit twice in a row. It produces a sequence that is genuinely, brutally indifferent to what came before it. And that difference is the thing we find so hard to replicate. Because our brains are not indifferent. Our brains are the opposite of indifferent. They are relentless pattern completion engines, shaped across millions of years to find signal in noise. To hear footsteps in the dark, to see faces in the clouds, to notice when something repeats, because repetition in nature is often a warning. That rustle in the grass. Again and again. The brain that treats repetition as suspicious is the brain that survives. So we carry that into a psychology experiment or a lottery ticket or a simple party trick, and we produce sequences that look just slightly too varied, too deliberately irregular. Real randomness, when you look at a long enough sequence of it, will sometimes produce 5 sevens in a row. It will sometimes look structured, because randomness has no obligation to look random. But when humans see 5 sevens in a row, something in us flinches. We assume the sequence is broken. We'd never produce that ourselves, which is exactly the problem. The very thing that makes us exceptional at navigating a chaotic world, our hunger for pattern, makes us constitutionally incapable of generating chaos on demand. We cannot switch it off. We don't even know it's running. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable. Because if your number isn't truly random, then it came from somewhere. From you. From something in you that you didn't consciously choose to reveal. Researchers who study this have found that the numbers people select under pressure in fast response experiments designed to minimize deliberation correlate measurably with things like anxiety level, cognitive load, and cultural familiarity with certain digits. The number 7 is considered lucky in a wide range of Western and East Asian cultures. The number 4 is avoided in parts of East Asia because it sounds like the word for death. Numbers are not neutral. They carry the sediment of every story we've been told about them. And here's what that means. Every time you pick a number at random, you are producing a kind of signal. Not a message you intended to send, but a message nonetheless. A fingerprint. There is a field of fraud detection built entirely on this. Benford's law, a statistical principle that describes how naturally occurring numbers distribute across leading digits, has been used to detect fabricated accounting data, fake scientific results, manipulated election tallies. The logic is simple. Real random data follows the law. Human-generated fake random data does not. People trying to invent plausible-looking figures leave traces of themselves in the numbers. They can't help it. The fraud is visible not because people are stupid, but because they're human. The pattern is the tell. The attempt to hide is the exposure. What you invent reveals more about you than what you observe. So why do we feel so viscerally that our numbers are more random than machines? Why does the computer's output feel cold and arbitrary, while ours feels chosen? There's a philosopher named Daniel Dennett who spent a considerable amount of time on a related question: whether free will is compatible with determinism. Whether choice means anything if everything that produces a choice was itself caused by something prior. He didn't fully resolve it. Nobody has. But it maps onto this almost perfectly. When you pick 37, you feel the weight of the decision. You feel like you reached out and grabbed it from the void. And because you felt that, because there was an experience of choosing, it feels genuinely free, genuinely opened, genuinely random. The machine doesn't feel anything. Its output just appears, and so it feels less authored, less free, less random in the way that matters to us, which is to say, less like a choice and more like a mechanism. But here's the part that sits uncomfortably if you let it. Your brain is also a mechanism. A very complicated, very old, very beautiful one, but a mechanism. And the number you just picked was the output of processes you did not consciously initiate, influenced by memories you cannot fully access, shaped by a culture you were born into, constrained by neural architecture you did not design. The experience of choosing is real. The freedom of the choice is harder to locate. You cannot think of a random number because you cannot step outside of yourself to think. You are always thinking from somewhere, and that somewhere has a shape. So, pick a number, any number. You already have one, don't you? You've had one since the beginning, and now you know something about it you didn't know before. Not that it's wrong, not that it's broken, but that it's yours. Completely, inescapably, structurally yours. The machine generates randomness by having no history. No preference. No story. You generate something else. Something that carries the whole weight of what you are, what you've learned to fear, what your culture taught you to trust, what your brain has been optimizing for since long before you were born. We think randomness is emptiness. No signal, no preference, no self. But maybe the reason we can't produce it is simpler and stranger than that. Maybe randomness requires a kind of silence we are incapable of. We are too loud on the inside. Always have been. The number you picked isn't random, but it is in a way that matters. True. That's either deeply reassuring, or it should keep you up at night. I genuinely cannot tell you which.